look at the VENDORecon scenario where we pay the vendor the taxes as billed by the vendor, even if the amount billed by the vendor doesn't match what the tax engine calculated. You might use this scenario for certain trusted vendors or in cases where the tax differences are small. Perhaps the vendor is over or underbilled us, but in any event, we want to just pay them as billed. Let's go ahead and create an Lav invoice. Enter the invoice date at the header. Enter a value in the reference field. And let's enter an amount. For this scenario, the vendor is billing us $1,085. That includes $1,000 for the line item and $85 in tax. We can keep the Calculate Tax box checked. There's no need to enter the tax amount here. Let's go ahead and enter our PO information. Our purchase order line is for a single $1,000 I-1 taxable line. And the amount of tax calculated by the tax engine is $87.50. The vendor, on the other hand, has billed us slightly less, so they've billed us $85 in tax. This equates to a negative $2.50 difference because the vendor has underbilled us by $2.50. You'll notice that this invoice is out of balance. We can invoke VENDORecon two ways. One is you can click on the Save button to post the invoice immediately, or two, you can click on the Simulate button to see the results of VENDORecon prior to posting the invoice. Let's click on Simulate. At this point, VENDORecon has been invoked to balance the invoice. You'll notice that we paid the vendor the $1,085 that they've billed us, so we've effectively paid them as billed. You'll also notice that we've reversed the goods receipt clearing account by the $1,087.50, which is based on the amount of tax that we estimated on the purchase order and that we expensed during goods receipt. Now, because we've elected to pay the vendor as billed, meaning we've agreed to pay $1,085 in tax, we actually need to adjust our expense amount by $2.50 because ultimately we're paying less tax than we had originally estimated. So you'll notice that the office supplies account is reduced by the $2.50, and that you'll also notice that our I-1 tax code remains on the document. So effectively, our invoice is now in balance, we're paying the vendor as billed, and we're adjusting the expense amount by the reduced amount of expensed tax. Let's go ahead and post the document. Let's look at the invoice document. You'll see that we're paying the vendor the $1,085 that they billed us, so we're paying them as billed. You'll also notice that the tax amount is the $85 that we're paying the vendor. You'll see that the tax code is still an I-1, and if we click on the accounting documents, we can see the accounting entries for the tax adjustment. The accounting entries reflect that we're paying the vendor the $1,085 that they billed us. We're reversing out the goods receipt exactly how it was posted at the time of goods receipt, and we're also adjusting the expense amount. And now, if you click on the tax details, you'll see that the amount calculated by the tax engine is reflected in the first 6 conditions, and if you scroll down to the 7th condition, you'll see the adjustment amount that balances. This reflects the difference between the amount that the vendor billed and we ultimately paid and the amount that the tax engine calculated. If you implemented spot reports, you'll be able to see this in a separate column called the tax difference. So that concludes the VENDORecon pay as billed scenario with an Lav invoice.